Welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer and Larry, and we're going to be talking about The Undoing, episode number 4. But before we do that, please hit that sub button, the upvote, leave a comment. A lot of great comments on the last video. You know, we read through them. A lot of great theories. We're going to discuss some of those in this video. And yeah, let's start with Jonathan. Oh, Jonathan. Jonathan Fraser. What a villain you are, Hugh Grant. Damn. I mean, I don't think he did it. I really don't. But shit, he's a bad guy. Like throughout everything you learn about him, it's horrible.
It's like, yeah, he clearly, like, it seems like he didn't did it, but he's definitely trying to pass the buck. That's for sure.
Well, and throughout the episode, and I've said it several times, and you guys haven't disagreed, but you know, the narcissistic, the sociopath stuff that Larry's brought out, like he is a giant piece of shit, and throughout this episode he only got worse. But there's a couple scenes where, you know, he's talking with the lawyer, the Haley Fitzgerald, but they're speaking, and it made me question whether or not, because I've been on the whole bandwagon where he didn't do it, but he is still a piece of shit. But his conversation with her made me. This episode did a great job of making you question who it is that's doing it and who didn't. But it put him, I don't know, back in my line of sight, I guess, because I didn't think he did it at all. But after that conversation, I was like, well, maybe he did. Maybe he's just trying to convince everybody else he didn't. I was just like, damn.
Well, what led to that, and let's go into the scene that led to that, and then we'll discuss that conversation, him with his lawyer. But I was in shock when he goes to visit Fernando Alves. I literally, when it was happening, I was like, wait, what? Like, I couldn't believe he was doing it, and you know, he goes in the apartment, and I didn't commit the murder, and he goes to talk to Miguel. And he holds his child and feeds it, and you know, there's this whole scene, and then we skip to the next scene, and Haley was saying the exact same thing. She's like, "What the fuck were you doing? Are you crazy? You're tampering with a witness. You can't do that." And then the way he reacted to that, I agree with you, Spencer. That's what got me also. Like, I don't think he did it, but shit, maybe he did, because that was the moment where I truly knew, okay, he's a master manipulator, and he's really good at it. And he truly doesn't see anything wrong with how he, behaves.
Well, that's the narcissism part. Like, I don't know necessarily that he thinks he's doing something wrong. You know, he's buying into his own bullshit.
Yeah, he seems to have a legitimate need to shape the narrative of who he is in everybody's head, to the point where he would do something that foolish. Like, it's a compulsion. He was compelled to go there, because I think, you know, everybody was thinking the minute he showed up on that doorstep, or at least the three of us seemed to have been like, well, what the hell is he doing there? That's crazy.
Well, and not only that, the refusal to leave.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like he was like, you know what, please, hear me out. He wouldn't let him shut the door. He legit refused to leave. It wasn't like he tried to convince him, like, hey, please talk to me. He just said no. And until he was heard, he wasn't leaving that residence.
And that's roughly how he is. Like, and we get to see that that's not just the way he is with Grace, because that's definitely the way he is with Grace, or has been during these, last few conversations. But you get the idea that it was, out of desperation, given everything that happened. But it seems like now, that's not because of the events of what's currently going on. That's just his personality. He's the type of person that does that just manipulates people in that way. And not only that, but he has to shape everyone's idea of who he is. And it's just weird that he showed up. Like, you think any human being on Earth who's mentally stable would know that it's a bad idea to show up on that man's doorstep.
I'll go one further. There was a moment where I felt it was bad writing for the show. It wasn't till the following scene where the show itself addressed how insane that situation was. Because there was a moment where I was like, this is insane. There's no way this would happen. And then, but clearly that was part of the story, and the show itself, went into it, and it, was showing just what kind of character he is. So by time we got to the scene with the lawyer, I was like, okay, it all made sense. But no, there was a moment where I was just like, yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it seemed like it for a minute that that it was just bad writing, but and there's been a few scenes like that where, well, in previous episodes where you're like, it's like, okay, why would a person do that? And then you find out, okay, this person, has this mental issue or that. And there's been another number of characters that have made me kind of feel that way, from not just him, but Grace or Elena, certain scenes with them, until you sort of get an idea of what their particular issues are.
Yeah, and I still think there's a lot we don't know specifically about Elena and Grace, definitely.
It certainly seems like it from this episode.
Yes. The episode, let's stick with Jonathan. The episode ends with a news interview. His lawyer basically says, look, you're a manipulator. That's what you're good at. Let's use that to our benefit. She makes it clear she doesn't care if he's innocent or guilty. She's paid to do a job by Franklin, and the job is to get him off. And so she's going to, solve that however she can. Now, obviously, if she knows the truth, that helps her with her case, but she's going to, try and help him. So, having him speak to the public, go ahead and sort of manipulate the jurors before they're chosen, that's her strategy. And we end with that sort of cliffhanger where not only does he say that he was in love with Elena, which affects Grace. We see her watching the interview, but then he says he has an idea of who may have done it.
Yeah,
well, when you said he tells everyone that he was basically in love with Elena, and it, to me, I don't know if he was or not. Like, at this point, I don't know if anything he says is 100% true or not. But how is he going to try and rectify that with Grace? He's been, throughout the episode, he was not sucking up to her, but basically trying to reconvince her to stay with him. And it's, it worked several times, but then by the end of the little conversation, Grace is, how weak do you think I am? And then she tries to walk away, but she keeps going back, and she keeps falling for his, charming ways, which was kind of the theme of this episode, that he's able to kind of charm his way out of anything. How the fuck is he going to go back to Grace after this now and be like, well, I'm just trying to convince the jury? Like, he can't save it now, because now she would look like a putz sitting in his corner now after he basically confessed his love for another woman on TV.
Well, yeah, and it's the sort of thing. It's like, is that really how he felt about Grace? And is that really, was he being honest in that situation, or was he just saying those things because he knew that's what he needed to say to Grace in order to gain access to her and her father's resources, so that he could get bailed out for prison, so that he could get the funds he needed for this lawyer? It may have been, the whole thing may have just been a play on his part.
Absolutely, it could be. The only negative thing about having previews is we know some things for next week. We know that he's with the family in next week's episode, so they haven't told him to F off completely. But then again, it shows sort of in the part of his defense is they're questioning why Grace was near the murder scene. So yeah, it almost looks, this is based on the preview. Now, obviously, they could have edited it in a way to be misleading, but it almost looks like if he's trying to turn it around and pin it on Grace through the preview.
Well, and I think they did a good job of the preview for last week when they showed this episode, because they showed Grace laying in the middle of the field with a bunch of people standing around her. So I don't think 100% that they're giving too much away with the trailer, but it does raise some questions for sure.
Franklin, yeah, like you said, Larry, he's put up 2 million. What is 2 million cash? Was it? It's
2 million. 2 million cash.
Jeez. So this, we still don't. I don't know. They called him Dr. Franklin, I believe, at one point, but I still really don't know any details about who he is and where his money comes from. But he he puts up the money. He goes to visit Jonathan. Now, this was a bizarre scene because there's a lot of people in our comment section, and I'm part of that group that really thinks there's something off about Franklin, and yet he seemed very convincing when he said he believed that Jonathan did it, and he basically tells him, if you screw my family over again, I'll kill you myself. But I don't. The way that scene came off, it made me say, I don't. Maybe he didn't do it. I don't know. That was the only episode, not the only episode, the only scene in the entire episode that cast doubt on Franklin. Every other scene sort of, to me, nudged me to think he was involved. But that one scene was the one that cast doubt for me.
I don't disagree. I think that, and we've talked about it before, as great a actor Hugh Grant is, as great as as great an actress Nicole Kidman is.
Yeah.
Donald Sutherland is just his character. My God, everything he says, everything he does, regardless of whether he did it or not, he's been my favorite character in this show. Just every line of dialogue, you can feel it. Like, you can feel the disdain for Jonathan. You can feel the, just pure bubbling over hatred. And he explains later, he's like, I see myself in him.
Yeah.
And so it kind of leads to some belief that he has a lot of self-loathing. Like, everything that he says, like, to me, I feel it. I'm like, damn.
Well, yeah, and it's the sort of thing, like, we saw him do a lot of crappy things to people in this episode. Well, we saw him threaten a lot. We saw him, exploit his power for personal gain and to keep things quiet for his family. Yeah, I think he realizes what kind of person he is, and while he's possibly even made his peace with that, he realizes that he's good with being the person he is. The person he is isn't the kind of person he wants in his daughter's life. He doesn't want someone like him who's manipulating things. In fact, manipulating his family for his personal gain.
And maybe he did do it, and maybe it all revolves around one simple word: control. He seems like someone who, you see the way he talks to everyone, including his own staff, the way he spoke to the principal of the school.
That was glorious.
He wants to be in control, and he'll do whatever it takes to accomplish that, and to protect his family, Grace and Henry specifically. Those are probably the only two things he really cares about. Those two people, they continue the legacy, of his family. You're right. He doesn't give a shit about Jonathan or anyone else. So yeah, I don't know. That school scene was great. He basically, I'll paraphrase. He just basically said he was old school, and that he was going to be. Well, I wrote it down. Ugliness. Yeah, that was the word he kept using.
Like, you've never seen ugliness before.
Yeah. But, basically saying, I'll do whatever it takes to destroy you and everyone you love if it means getting what I want. That's basically what he was saying.
Well, I think also parents, and I've seen, my parents, when it comes to my kids, do some pretty irrational shit. It's now, obviously, Donald Sutherland
he took it to new levels, and yeah.
And he also has the monetary means.
I could see that being a meme, actually, that scene.
But to me, that he felt like his child was attacked for no reason. And Henry, in that situation, what we saw, should not have constituted what happened. Now, I understand the school's point of view is, hey, there is way too much shit going on. There's way too much press. This is, drawing away from the students' education. They're all, focusing on Henry and what's going on. It would be in the best interest for him to not be here. However, Donald Sutherland, Franklin's like, nah, fuck that. I give you guys everything. You are not going to, isolate my child because of, basically an accusation. Because at this point, he hasn't been proven guilty. Now, I don't know whether he is or not, but, at this point in time, he's just like, no, I give way too much money to the school, happily. And for you to basically say that, my grandkid won't be able to come here. He's like, no. That's not how this is going to go.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's the kind of scene that that conversation he had with the principal, if that's something that's going to come back to haunt him, because his grandson was aware of it when it happened, and my
I'm glad
question
you brought that up because I did want to talk about that. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, because if he's aware of it, that means people at the school are aware of it, and the fact that he threatened him. So, is that actually going to harm them more than it's going to help them?
So Henry, we had the scene where he bumps into Miguel. It's just a very awkward scene. You sort of feel bad for both of the kids. They're in a weird spot. It was weird, but when Henry was playing the violin and, Franklin comes in, he talks about how, he heard about the interaction with the principal. That got me thinking a lot more about Henry. We've said Henry seems to know shit. He seems to be, we see him peeking in rooms, we see him listening, and Henry, now this could just be a curious kid, which absolutely, which is fine and makes sense. But is there something more diabolical at work there, or do you guys just think he's just, a kid in a weird spot, trying to figure out what's going on in his world?
Look at his lineage as far as genetics. Look at his mom, who we are led to believe is a little bonkers and a little off. And then you have the dad, who is a narcissistic sociopath. What does that make in a child? Like, holy shit. Like, is Henry all of the above? I think he's a kid, so I try to err on the side of he really is just a kid. He's just doing kid shit. But I think they're trying to make you feel like he's not just a kid. They're trying to kind of make you question what's going on, or at least that's the way I feel anyway. And I think that they do a great job of kind of making you feel like he's doing the same thing his dad's doing.
Right.
Kind of manipulating situations for his own personal gain.
And he may be to some degree, and it's the sort of thing it may be learned just from observing his parents. Just the way they manipulate situations and lie about things, and kind of cover. It's I don't know. Like I said, it may just be that he's awkward, because that was a very awkward scene between him and Miguel. That he's an awkward kid in an awkward situation. Like, it's still very much things are still questionable involving. Like, I don't think it's him, but it could be him. Who killed Elena,
which is the greatest as all the could be's, which makes it more interesting to watch.
Grace had her weird feigning spell, but let's talk about all the scenes that led up to that, because I'm curious to what exactly took place. She's walking at nighttime. It looks like
for a whole day straight.
See, that's what I wasn't sure about. That's exactly what I'm asking. I don't know. And we saw Mr. Alves following her, but was he really following her at that point? Then it's daytime. Then she's sort of seeing, weird things, and then she passes out. Now, it's clear she's under stress. That makes complete sense. That there's nothing weird about that. But it's more so. Sometimes she'll have dreams, and she'll. Is it a memory, or is it a projection of what she thinks happened? And that's where I'm not sure about the character of Grace. Well, what exactly is going on? Because she had all those thoughts about Elena. So I don't know. That whole sequence, what do you guys think of what the show was trying to tell us?
Well, I think that, like you said, everything is trying to. This show is like a lawyer. It is trying to cast doubt on everyone, yet also point the finger at everyone else. So it does a very good job of setting odd tonal scenes where you don't really know what's going on. And I think Grace, they do the best of that kind of scenario with Grace, because they do such a great job of, you don't know. They show Grace with the painting stuff, and then she sees, Elena painting her, kind of being a little manic and a little crazy, and then all of a sudden it shows her pleading for her life. Like you said, are these memories, or are these her
Let's zero in on the painting real quick, and then Larry, you can say what you need to about the other stuff. The police come to her and say, "Hey, there's this very detailed portrait of you," and Eleanor was doing it. And then, as you said, the way she was having those dreams and Eleanor was painting it, there were moments where I was like, "Were you there?
Yeah.
Were you and her in a relationship? Like, what was going on? Or how could you suppress that much of a? You know what I mean? Like, I'm really confused."
Yeah, it's the sort of thing where a lot of those scenes that we flashed to definitely made it seem like they were a lot closer than it appears. Made it seem like some of those visions or potential memories that she had in previous episodes, like perhaps those happened. And then like you said, there's the portrait the portrait she has of her. It's I don't know. It's just kind of unless you took a picture of her on the sly, it seems like kind of an odd thing for her to be able to just from memory be able to paint that. I feel like she was potentially there for that portrait.
What if Franklin commissioned the portrait?
Something else I noticed too, when we saw Elena and Grace in the elevator, and they had that little scene where Elena just kind of kissed her softly and thank you or whatever. When she has the memory of it, it feels way different. And this is when we've said it several times throughout these episodes, that it's almost like she's remembering stuff, but when she remembers it, it's differently than what they showed us previously. So when they show the memory she has, it's almost like an embrace as opposed to just like a thank you kind of thing. So it felt way different in the memory that she had in this episode than it did in the first episode where we saw it happen.
Well, yeah, that's true. Because in the first episode where we saw that happening, where we saw what appeared to be an alternate scene of what may have happened, when she had that conversation in the locker room, it was very different than what we saw happen. And it's the question, like, which one is like, which scene is the false memory and which scene is the one that actually happened, or did both these happen?
Well,
somehow
in the first episode, it looked like Grace was a little uncomfortable when it happened. But in this episode, she did not look uncomfortable when she was having the memory. So that's what I'm saying is, like, it's odd. And we've brought it up several times. Her memory of what's going on has a way different feeling than what we're being shown. But we don't know which one's real. They do a great job of, like I said, casting doubt, mucking stuff up.
We know that she had her phone number and that she called it several times leading up to her death, and Grace never answered the phone. Yet again, more evidence pointing towards Grace having a bigger involvement, and the detectives, definitely on the case.
Why the fuck is she talking to those detectives without her lawyer?
I would never even let them in without a warrant or a lawyer. I was just speaking from a legal side of
standpoint.
Yeah. Christ, at this point, as smart as they've said she is, for her to just talk to them and then get put in a corner and then walk away, God, she just setting herself up.
I think we've established that Grace clearly thinks she's a much better liar than she actually is. I mean, because given the excuse that she gave the police officers, for one, that is like, no, I don't know that number. I thought it could have been a telemarketer or anything as far as I knew. It's like, well, you guys were both on that committee together. So, that's a pretty obvious lie right there.
Yeah. And they went to the same gym and they kissed in the elevator. And these are all memories we know happen, based on her memory. So, yeah, for her to just be like, no, I didn't know her,
Right. Yeah, it doesn't add up, but Grace thinks she's a better liar than she is. So, it becomes a sort of situation. Well, she does seem confident in the way that she deals with it, at least when she's talking to him, or like she's trying to appear confident, in what she's saying. But like you said, it is unusual at this point that she's still talking to them without a lawyer. present.
Let's go back to. Oh, go ahead. You got something.
No, I was just saying, yeah, fuck that.
Let's go back to Jonathan real quick. There's two pieces of information we learned about him with his meeting with Haley Fitzgerald. Number one, he's estranged from his family, but he wouldn't go into details. He acted as if they didn't have money, so maybe he didn't come from money. That's what I felt was he was trying to say.
That's what, yeah. He said they wouldn't have the means or the interest in it.
Yeah.
Well,
It almost sounds like
dog died. Remember? Is
That's why.
he's a strange family because his dog died.
Do you think that story is going to come back? I do. I think that story is absolutely going to come back. There's only 2 episodes, but I think it's going to come back.
I hope so.
well, yeah. It seems like we're leading towards potentially seeing a family member of his showing up at some point or something, or at least going into the details of what happened with him and his family, because it does seem to be a thing that's been offhandedly mentioned throughout episodes. From his lawyer to the story with the dog in the first episode and everything. So there's potentially an important detail there to some degree. I guess at least in figuring him out or figuring out what's going on here.
There's also the fact that he admitted that he had an affair years ago with another, I guess, patient type scenario, or it was a result of he had a bad day at work. But that he did have an affair. He said only one. He claimed that it was only one other person ever, but Haley wanted to know who it was, and clearly that's gonna.
That feels significant. That feels like we'll be seeing that person, and I think that's part of her play, much like the TV interview and like his whole saying that he was in love with Elena and he has an idea who it might be, and then showing. And then potentially mentioning that there was another woman before her. It's all showing, I think it's all to cast out, because it's like, okay, this guy was with someone else before, had a fling, he didn't kill her. He seems to have had serious feelings for Elena during the time he was with her, and he seems to know who. So, was it him, or is it someone potentially that was also close to her that he knew of? That seems to be what they're going for. Just sort of casting doubt on the idea that it could be that maybe it could be him, but are we sure it's him?
Well, unless Elena claimed 3 different cases against him as far as at the hospital goes, there's no way that it was just one. Also,
that's true.
He never said who it was. He just kept saying, no, it's not that important. It was just a one-time thing. No, and he never really alluded to it was another one of his patients. There's several comments that kind of point me in this direction too, that maybe it's Sylvia, the lawyer friend of Grace.
And that would make sense too.
That would make a lot of sense.
And they were setting us up to be hit by that, pretty hard, because throughout these episodes, everybody talks about how great Sylvia is and how supportive she is. And she does seem supportive, but, maybe it's more her keeping a close eye on things because she's...
Wouldn't it be great if that was his daughter, too?
Oh, man.
Like he said it was years ago.
Yeah, that could be the case.
Or guilt. It's her friend, so she feels bad for doing it.
She feels bad, and when everything comes out in the wash, it implicates her in certain ways, and it's didn't even think about that, man.
That you caught me on
that's
that.
That's a big one.
Yeah, that
it's
might
possible.
be it. Well, it may. I think you may be onto something there, because they keep focusing on that character, and yet I don't really see where she fits into the big picture.
Yeah, she's so closely tied, and she seems to be. Everybody sees her as this support, as this good person. Like even Grace's dad. But here's the thing: if he had an affair with Sylvia, and if Sylvia's involved to some degree, if Sylvia was his previous fling. Well, one of his previous flings and everything, what if she thought of that as more serious than he did? What if she's the one that killed Elena?
If that is it, damn, you called it, and we'll do a whole video celebrating because you know what? What if she had some kind of craziest?
Well, wouldn't even gone there if Spencer hadn't brought up the fact that she could be the other woman.
All right, everybody listening, if you think there's something to that, please leave your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear the audience uh, analyze that and see if there's anything that we missed that would connect to that, or if there's something that's obvious that wouldn't be the case. Definitely.
I went to the page to get the person's name. I want to say Thara, Thara Cooper. That's the one who left the comment about the Sylvia. Says Sylvia is too entrenched in all of this. She's up to something, probably in love with Jonathan too. But like we said, that it just does point, in a direction that, like you said, Larry, what if that's his kid also?
I said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. What if?
No, it doesn't matter. That's great. Yeah, shit, guys. I didn't even none of those things.
Yeah, if all these things or even a few of these things are true, that's a major twist for the show, and I think it kind of blindsided us all to some degree. But yeah, now I'm kind of leaning towards it being Sylvia, because that would be a shock, and she is closely involved enough with all this that it could be her.
Yeah, man, that's shit. That's a good theory.
But that's what I'm saying. There's just another question mark. Like, how many different people could it be?
It's the Badger.
Well,
he did it.
And the thing too is, this to me goes back to Jonathan. It's regardless of whether he killed Elena or not, it seems that he's directly responsible for her death. Whether it's Donald Sutherland that did it, Franklin, whether it was Grace, whether it was Jonathan, Sylvia, like, he is 100% responsible for her death, regardless of who did it or why it happened.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. Yes, there's a race.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So that is all my notes, and yeah, wow, guys, I had great theories. I didn't think of those things. Anything else y'all want to talk about in regards to episode 4?
Nothing. Just that's the big thing to me now. The idea that it could be Sylvia, and it just ties things together pretty well. And the fact that she keeps in touch with all of our main players in the show, with of course the exception of Elena's husband, and even then, like early on, she was keeping tabs on him for Grace in the courtroom and keeping her updated. So. Like, she's very well informed and indirectly tied to a lot of things already. So yeah, it just makes a lot of sense.
Well, and she is, went to school with the DA, so I think that she would perhaps be able to get an inside track of what the case is, how they're going about it, and this would help her be able to avoid getting caught if she knew the tactics that they were using to try and convict Jonathan. It would help keep herself out of, the suspicion corner. So I think that it is a very plausible thing. But once again, it's like I said, this whole season has been kind of very criminal justice type thing, where it's casting doubt on a lot of people, but on the same time pointing the finger at a lot of people, all within the same episode.
And I like that it's only 6 episodes. To me, it feels like that's enough. You know what I mean? I've enjoyed the story, but I do feel you can wrap it up into 2 more episodes. So this is an example of I think the episodes, the pacing is fine. The way the story is being told is really well done, and So sometimes shows, they drag on a little too long, or you have a couple filler episodes, or obviously, sometimes you have the opposite where there's not enough episodes. But in this particular case, the way this story is being told, 6 feels right.
It feels right. It does.
Well, in the night of the other series I was talking about, the kind of murder mystery, same kind of feel. The HBO does a great job with the miniseries type shows, and I think that, like you said, Brian, this is a great example of that. You just kind of get a story, you tell that story, and that's it. And to me, it's a long movie format, but they do a great job with that format.
So yeah, that was The Undoing episode 4. Like I said, there's 2 episodes left. We will be covering both of them on Sunday nights, the next 2 Sunday nights. We've decided that we're going to be doing, there's a new show dropping this week called Big Sky. It's, I believe, on ABC. I think it'll go to Hulu the day after. So I think it drops on Tuesday. We'll have a review up on Wednesday for the premiere episode. So if you're into mystery type things, that's going to be another story in the same vein of, I don't know if it's a murder mystery or just a kidnapping. Based on the trailer, it looks like kidnappings, but I mean, it could lead to murder. But yeah, we're going to be doing that. It stars Mr. Cruel Intentions himself, Ryan Felipe. Cruel Intent. Anyone who watched tonight's episode on HBO as opposed to HBO Max would have seen that Cruel Intentions was the lead-in to tonight's episode. I was laughing because last night we were like, "Yeah, we're gonna do Big Sky," and we just kept talking about Ryan and Cruel Intentions, and then shit, it was on. It was literally on right before The Undoing tonight. But yeah, we're gonna do that and see how it goes, and see if the audience is there, and if you guys are into it and want to do, leave comments and have a discussion about where that story is going to go as well. So we appreciate the comments, we appreciate the upvotes and the subscriptions, and we'll see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.